All right, so we are back. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to get started with today's episode. Thanks for waiting, and sorry for the delay. But how are you all? Hey, Rizat, Jovan, how you doing? So today I've got quite a lot of stuff to go through with this app. Also, Merry Christmas to all of you who celebrate. Happy New Year pretty soon. Also, if you don't celebrate, I hope you're still getting a nice holiday. And so what we're doing is 2 weeks ago we started with this app that you see in front of you right now. Very bootstrapped, I guess is the word. Not hacked together, but it's close. And what we're doing is we are making an Instagram scheduler where we can get users to register, upload their pictures, and select a date for the picture to be uploaded to Instagram. And then on that date, it'll be uploaded to Instagram. So yeah, just lets you schedule your posts. The main reason to do that is to start a software as a service app that we could potentially sell a subscription to or something like that. The main aim, of course, is to show you how that would be done and also to learn a little bit about some new technologies that we haven't covered in our courses, such as handling images and uploading them to a third-party service, as well as dealing with scheduling of background tasks, stuff like that. Also to have a little bit of fun. So hopefully you guys will join me through it, enjoy the process, and we can work on this together. The GitHub repo, look at my bison there. The GitHub repo is somewhere, let me see. There. So that was 14 days ago that I made the commits, and everything's up to date with what I've got right now. This is a public repo, so if you want to get access to this code and either follow along with me on the stream or just check the code out, you can do that in github.com/teclado code/instagram-scheduler-stream. So you can do that. And you're very welcome to follow along, offer suggestions on the stream, ask questions, anything you want. But this is not a teaching stream. So just something to keep in mind. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to try to upload the photos that users are uploading to our application. We're going to try to upload them to Instagram. So yeah, let's get started with that. And like I said, if you have any questions or any comments, say them in the chat. Hey Christian, thanks man. Merry Christmas to you as well. So let's start by taking a look at the code that we've got here already. So quite a few things going on. Let me zoom in just once. Yeah, there we go. Move that out of the way. And let's hide this. So we've got quite a few things. I'm gonna close everything. We've got quite a few things going on here. So this is a Flask app. We've got app.py. And in app.py, we are using Flask security to handle our authentication. And basically what it does is it does everything for us. It allows us to log in, sign up. It can even do things like email confirmations and stuff like that, although I've set it to false at the moment. So we've got a few configuration properties that we're setting here, like the secret key, which is used for assigning cookies. We've got the password salt, which is used for encrypting passwords before they go into the database. And then we've got the content length and the upload extensions. And actually, I'm going to change this to JPEG because on my research, JPEG is the only allowed extension for photos that are going to Instagram. So we're only going to allow that kind of extension. Thank you very much. Person whose name I can't pronounce, nor do I know how to read it. But greetings. It's great to see you here. And thank you for recommending our courses. That's brilliant. Feel very, very appreciative of you guys sharing the content with your friends. So thank you for that. So then we create a single organization user data store, which is a very simple class to find and create users in the database. And then we basically use that to create a test user, and we can do the same thing to create other users if we wanted to, although Flask Security 2 is already set up to create login and register endpoints for us, so we don't really have to do this most of the time. And then we've got our homepage here that just says hello email, and then uses the current user to give us whoever is signed up. So Flask Security 2 is going to deal with basically everything for us related to users, authentication, login, etc. And then we spent some time 2 weeks ago creating this b2_upload.py file, which is going to upload a photo to B2 Backblaze. And B2 Backblaze is similar to AWS S3. It's just a file storage service, and it has some nice APIs, which means we can upload any picture or anything really into it, and then we can get a public URL to the photo once we've uploaded it. So to do that, if you can't remember how we did that, I'd recommend checking the video from 2 weeks ago. It's in the account under live streams. But basically what it does is it just gets the application keys and the key ID for B2 Backblaze, and then uses the B2 API, which is a library that they've created to authorize the account, get a container for our photos, which is called Instagram-scheduler, and then essentially this function here will upload a photo to it. So it just takes the file name and sends it over. And then at the end, what we get returned is a URL, a public URL for the photo that is uploaded to our bucket. So why is that useful? Because this public URL is what we then give to Instagram, and they download the photo from the public URL and put it on Instagram. So all we have to do to upload a photo to Instagram is give them this public URL. So that's pretty sweet that we can get that from B2. Then there's a simple database.py, which sets up the database and essentially gives us a base class that we can use, and we use that in our models. And we've got, for example, the image model, which is an Instagram image class, and it has a few columns. And we've also got auth.py, which has a few other models like user, role, and roles users. These are essentially given to us by Flask Security 2. But all of these are given or populated when we create new users, which again Flask Security 2 handles for us. In image.py, we've got the only model that we kind of deal with. So we will be creating these models and putting their data in the database. So there's only 3 properties at the moment, but we can always change these. So we've got the ID, which is populated by our database, user ID, which is going to tell us which of these users created the image, and also the image URL, which is what's given to us by B2 Backblaze. And so we're going to store those 3 things in the database. Then let's go over to the views. So we've got the upload.py view, and here we've got a single endpoint. And a view, really, what I mean is a Flask blueprint, so a set of pages that we're going to register with our Flask app. And there are, there's one endpoint here that can be accessed with either a get method or a post method. If it's a get, we're going to show the upload.html template. And if it's a post, we're going to show we're going to do all of this, which is getting the image from the request and essentially saving it to the local file system. Then when it's saved as a file locally, we're going to upload it to B2 Backblaze. Once it's uploaded to B2, we get the file URL back, and then we delete it from the local file system, and that's it uploaded. We get the file URL, and we save the Instagram image model with the current user's ID and the file URL to our database. Jovan, I'm using, I think it's Atom 1 Dark. It's GitHub Dark, actually. Yeah. That's the one I'm using. Then after uploading the image, we redirect to this endpoint, which will then render the HTML file. So the template is very simple. It just has a form with a file selector and a submit button. There's nothing in the static folder, so that's really everything. There's also a test folder here, which doesn't actually have any Python tests. All it has is the photo that we're going to be uploading. So that should be a JPEG, which will change. Then there is also a .env file, which contains some data that our application needs. And there's a .env.example that is currently empty. So let me actually populate this so I can show you guys what information we need. So let me take this away for a second. There we go. So in the .env file, we need the B2 app key ID and the B2 app key. So these two are gonna be required. We need those values in there, and they are private to your account, but they get used by here. You can see that we load the .env file, which gets the .env file and gives us the values in OS Environ, and that's where we're using those two values there. So that was a quick overview of what's going on. Let's get started with the app. So let's run the app. Oh, I think I've already got something running. Let me have a look. I do. So I spent the last couple of days really fighting with Instagram in order to see what we could do. So let me stop that and delete the test database and start again. We can register. So if we register here, we get the register template, and the login templates are provided by Flask Security 2. And then when we register, we have the home endpoint, which as you can see doesn't really do anything. But we do have a blueprint registered, which is upload pages, and that's this blueprint here. You can see it has a URL prefix of /upload, and the root itself is just /. So here we can go to /upload, and then we have the upload form, that's the word, where we can choose a file, and we can then select the file that we are going to upload. So let me just reveal this, and then I'm not sure if actually I can do this JPEG. Yeah, it seems I can. You can just drop it in there, upload, and then that's going to go to B2 Backblaze and upload the photo there if all is well. So it seems there are no errors, which is good. Let's double check Backblaze and see what we can do. So there's the password, And then we've got our bucket. And the last upload date is, you can see here, illustration2.jpg, which was uploaded today, which is excellent. And we've got some information there about it. Okay, let's delete everything from here. We don't need anything just now. But we should check that our test DB does contain the appropriate information. So let me just open that database there, browse data, and we've got our image URL with our user. So fantastic. And now obviously this URL should return a 404 because we just deleted the image. Yeah, there you go, 404. So hopefully everything is relatively clear up to here. If anything's unclear, I would recommend watching the initial video from 2 weeks ago, which, like I said, is on the channel. Now we get to continue, and what we're going to do is, well, try to add something so that we can log in with Instagram. And let me tell you that that is not overly easy. So I've already been doing some research, because if not, this would be many hours of me fighting with the Facebook APIs, and you guys being extraordinarily bored. So let me show you kind of what I've learned so far. So if you want to do anything with Facebook APIs or Instagram APIs, this is going to be pretty useful for you. Basically, Instagram and Facebook use the same login mechanism. They both log in with Facebook. So what we will have to do is, first of all, I've actually got some notes. First of all, we are going to have to register as a Facebook developer. That's actually really straightforward. You go to developers.facebook.com, and then at the top right, there's a Get Started button. You click on Get Started. It asks you a couple of simple questions, and that's you done. You don't need to, it's not as complicated as the Twitter developer application, which is a big pain to get to. Facebook developer is very straightforward, so clearly anybody has access to anybody's data in here. Then we're gonna create a business app. So let me go to my apps, and you can create an app, and it's gonna be a business app. And then here you can have just any app name that you want. This one, and then you can select a page that you're, I think that's a page anyway, business account. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I think to set up a business page you need a business account. So you basically select that, and you create the app. Then it asks you for your password, so you can enter that. Well, that's basically you're off to the races. You've got an app with an app ID, and this is a very useful thing. So you can grab that and put it in your .env file. So I'm just going to move this to the side, and then in the .env.example, you're going to create something called Facebook app ID. You're going to put that in your .env file, and the value is going to be equal to the app ID that we grabbed a moment ago. So I'm just going to move this to the side and do that. So then when you've got your app ID, that's the first step. And then we need to do two more things in order to gain access to the Instagram APIs. We need to get Facebook login on our app. That is so that we can show people the Facebook login window, and then we can ask Facebook or ask the users for certain user permissions. So we're going to set that up. And here you don't have to use the quick start. All that you want to do is go to your settings, and in here we're gonna need to put something in a moment. But that's Facebook login added to our application, so that's good. Don't care about that. And then we're gonna add the Instagram Graph API as well. So you click Setup, and that's you set up. So basically what that does is it allows your application to ask Facebook accounts for certain permissions, like post to Instagram on your behalf and stuff like that. You can't ask users for permission to do that on their accounts if you don't have Instagram Graph API set up. Okay, so that's our two things there. And there is one more thing that you do need, which is if you go to your app settings, in basic settings, there is an app secret here, which you need to add to your .env file. So here you would add Facebook app secret, and here you would put the value inside your .env file. So I'm going to do that again, and that is something that you do want to keep secret. So I'm going to try my best to not show you guys that, but we'll see what happens. So just on the other screen, I'm just hitting show to look at the app secret, and then I'm going to add it to the .env. So I've basically got that, and I've added it to the .env file. So now I've got those two values in my .env file, and I can access them with the OS module. Once that's all done, which is, I appreciate, quite a lot of setup, now we can get to log in with Facebook. So we can go back to the manually build a login flow window here, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna send users to this this thing that you'll have seen many times already, which is the login with Facebook window. So you send users to there, and then once people have clicked the continue as your name, then Facebook will send the user back to our application, and it will give us some information that tells us that the user login was successful. Once we've got that information, it is a unique code that we send back to Facebook every time we want to do something as that user. And because we have that unique code, then that tells Facebook that we have the appropriate permissions to do things on that user's account. So I appreciate that's a pretty vague explanation on how things work. So let me see if I can show it to you with a bit of an example, which fortunately I've already got. So let me grab this and grab this. Give me a second. It's a bit tricky to be hiding information. So we're here, let me copy that. So that's all a public thing, which is okay. I'm just doing something on the other screen because I'll need it in a second. So I appreciate this is a very obscure thing that's happening. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me stop this, and I will bring this other window in for you guys to see. So here's another sample application that I've already made. So basically, let me run it. This is a very simple Flask app that when you hit login, it sends you to this endpoint here, which has a redirection to the Facebook dialog window, and it sends the Facebook app ID, a redirect URI, and some unique number that doesn't really matter at the moment. Also, it asks for some permissions from the Facebook login window. So it's basically going to tell users, do you want to allow this application to use your account? And the application wants to get access to your Instagram information, get access to the pages that you control, and be able to post Instagram content on your behalf. That's what happens with that redirect there. And the important part is the redirect URI. And so the redirect URI means that when a user clicks on continue, Facebook is going to send the user back to this redirect URI, whatever that is. So we want to send users back to our application. So when we generate the redirect URI here, I'm getting the URL for this endpoint. And marking it as external just includes the HTTP section, as well as the domain name and so forth, and then makes it HTTPS because it has to be HTTPS for Facebook. So with this, we can go to login, but you can see that I'm in 127.0.0.1:5000. That's where the Flask app runs. So if I go to login just now, it doesn't like it. It says the domain of this URL, which is 127.0.0.1, isn't included in the app's domains. So we have to do something about that. So that's where the Facebook login settings, valid auth redirect URIs, this is where this comes in. So we need to put in here a valid place to send users back to when they click on continue on the login dialog. But there is, of course, an extra hoop to go through. Login, Facebook, redirect. Because if we do this, which is... actually, it should be 127.0.1:5000. Login, Facebook, redirect. So this is the address that we are going to, really. 127.0.1:5000/login/Facebook/redirect. And there are a couple of problems with this. If I click save, it doesn't like it. It says that it has to be HTTPS. HTTP is not allowed. But if I go in here and I put HTTPS, this won't work because Flask apps don't use HTTPS by default. You need to set up a certificate in order to be able to accept HTTPS. So setting up a local certificate is a bit more hassle than it's worth. So fortunately, we have an alternative, which is Ngrok. So as you can see, things are piling up with layers of requirements in order to get Instagram to work, which is why I'm happy I did some research yesterday instead of just coming to you guys with nothing. Ngrok is a free tool which will give you a public URL for your locally running application. Basically, 127.0.0.1:5000 is not a URL that you guys can access from your computers right now. But if I use Ngrok, I can generate a public URL that you can access. And similarly, it'll give me a URL that Facebook can access. And better than that, it'll give me a valid URL that I can put in here so that Facebook can send people back to that application. So with all that said, all that you have to do is sign up for Ngrok and download it, and then once it's working, you do Ngrok HTTP 127.0.0.1:5000, and that then gives you a valid HTTPS domain name, which is right there, that when you go to it, it goes to your local website. So that is a lot of hoops to go through in order to just be able to do this. But now we have a valid redirect URI, so that's good. We can go to here, then we can log in, and now it works. We need to give it access to our page, and these are the 3 permissions that our application was asking for with this scope in here: Instagram basic, pages show list, Instagram content publish. So that's these 3 things: access profile and posts from the Instagram account connected to your page, upload media and create posts, and show a list of the pages you manage. So once we've done that, it links the apps, and then it goes back to our website, which is this endpoint here. Okay. So with that, we have now a code, which is this one there, all of that. And that code is not that useful on its own. That code, together with our app's secret key, can be used to generate something called an access token. And that access token can then be used to make requests to Facebook as if it was me. So a very complicated sort of way to go about things. But that's kind of how it works. So that's auth in a nutshell. Not really a nutshell though. So what we would do is we would save the code, and then that's us getting a code back. And then what we have to do is we have to get an access token. So that's this, exchanging code for an access token. So to get an access token, we make an HTTP GET request to this endpoint. We pass it our app ID. We pass it the redirect URI that has to be the same one as we passed when we initially requested the code. We pass it the app secret, and we pass it the code that we received here. So it is only at this point, when we want to get an access token, that we need the app secret. Okay. So basically we need to recreate this very simple example in our Instagram scheduler. So let's do that. And in our Instagram scheduler, we have the Facebook app secret in there, which is what we're going to use. Okay, let's create a new view. I'm going to call it Facebook auth. I'm going to grab everything that I had in the other one. We do need a state variable, and I'll explain what state is later on, but for now it doesn't really matter. We obviously don't want to be creating a Flask app in here. All we want is a blueprint. And here we're going to create a blueprint just like we did with the upload pages. And we're going to give it this URL prefix of /login/Facebook. All of these routes are going to be like this, but we don't need the home.html route. We just need the login Facebook and this one here. And now, by the time that we run or import this endpoint, we're gonna already have loaded the .env file. So here we can use import OS. What's this saying? Okay, that's right. And here instead of Facebook app ID, we're gonna use the OS module. So Facebook app ID equal OS, and we run .get Facebook app ID. The redirect URI is going to be the same, and the state variable is just a unique number that, or string, that we send to Facebook, and then they send us the same string back. That's so that we know that the response that they're sending us is in response to this specific request that we're making, and not some other request that we may be making. We'll worry about that later. So with that, we're really ready to log in with Facebook, but we do want to grab the code in here. And then once we have the code, we want to make a request to here to grab the access token. So let me just put this in here so we know what we're looking for exactly. So we need to make a GET request, for which we need to import requests. And we'll make this requests get to here. And params is a dictionary of all of these things. So client ID is the Facebook app ID, which I'm actually gonna extract into here. The redirect URI is the same one. I'm just gonna copy it for now. Later on we could find a better way to do things. Then we've got the client secret, which is gonna be Facebook app secret. And I think I've called it app secret. Yeah, I have. There we go. And finally, the code is code that is really just request args code. Okay, so there we have that, which is going to give us the response, and the response is going to be that. So it's going to contain an access token, and it's JSON. So we're going to have access token is going to be equal to response.json access token, if all goes well. So sorry, I just got to a couple of questions. Have you tried working with Django? Nope, I haven't used Django for anything. I've gone through the tutorial, but nothing more than that. Sriyish, hi, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming along. Christian, where can I start from if I wanted to start from the beginning? Are you talking about the beginning of this Instagram scheduler app or the beginning of coding as a whole? If it's the Instagram app, you can watch the video from 2 weeks ago. It's on the channel under live streams, and that was the beginning of building the app. So you can start there if you wanted to follow along. So when we have the access token, what will happen now is that every time we make a request to the Facebook API and we include that access token, because we have the access token, Facebook knows that we have gone through this login flow. And the only way to get an access token is by having a user confirm their account with the Facebook dialog and give us the permissions. So if we send the access token to the Facebook API, Facebook will know that a user has given us essentially that access token by logging in. So sending the access token equals representing a user. So any request we make to the Facebook API with the access token will be made for that user. For example, if we make a request to graph.facebook.com v12/me, and we include a certain user's access token, me is that user, and we would get some information about the user whose access token we are sending. So in our application, we're going to have different access tokens for different users, and whenever we get in touch with the Facebook API, we can represent one of those users simply by sending the access token. So we're going to be saving this access token in our database alongside some of the other user data that we've got. So let's go over to models, auth, and here we are going to just add another string, and here that's going to be Facebook access token, and that's going to be a string. And that's it, really. And now we'll need to recreate our database because obviously this column is new, but that's that. So let me just have a think. By the way, YouTube is saying that the stream's bitrate is too high. Can you guys let me know if everything's working okay? Is it buffering? Is it all fine? If it's fine, that would be good. So the access token is definitely something you want to keep private to yourself, since that represents each user. So it does have to be secure. Let's then grab the current user. So we should be logged in to our application in order to access these endpoints. So we can grab the current user and add this to their database row. Let's see how we can do that. So let's import these two things. Just like that. And we are also gonna need from database import db session. And then what we'll do is we will add the current user, but having been modified. Current user dot and current user is I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. So that's going to give us the access token. And we're going to save it to the database so that anywhere else we'll then have access to it. So let's see if that works. But I'm only going to save the first 10 characters because you guys are going to see this. Don't want to save that fully just yet. So let me just go over this flow again, see if it should work. So we'll get to /login/Facebook. We need to be signed in for that with our app. We send people to the dialog. The redirect URI is this one here. We then get a code that we've already tested and that should work. And then we use the API to turn it into an access token, and then we save the access token to the database. So that all seems okay. That all seems okay from here. Yo, thanks, Christian. I'm glad it's all working. More bitrate is more better, I think. But I guess it can be too much. Let's try this out. So a couple of things that we have to do. Flask run is going to start the application. Then we need to grab the Ngrok URL. We go to here and we make sure that that is correct, which it is. So then we can go to here. And of course I forgot to change the database. So let me stop that, delete the database, start it again. Go back in here. Okay, so we're good. Let's register. We're registered. And now I think we can go to... Oh no, this is wrong. The blueprint has a URL prefix of /login/Facebook. And so all of these routes should just not have that. Just /redirect. That's it. So let me restart that. We're still logged in though. And then we go to /login/Facebook. I forgot to register the blueprint. So let me do that from views.facebook auth, import Facebook auth, and here we're gonna register it. Brilliant. Okay, let's try again. Okay. We're in there. We have our code, which is good. So that's why it's been responded. And in the database, we should have saved, if it all worked, the first 10 characters of the access token. So let's check it out. User, maybe? I think I need to open this again. Yeah, doesn't reload properly. Facebook access token null, because it should be Facebook access token. So let's do it again. Let's do that again. Okay. All right, so we do have the first 10 characters of something, which suggests that we do have an access token. Excellent. We can go in here and remove the first 10 characters. From there, now if we go to /login/Facebook and we press continue, we should have an access token in here, which we do. And also it only shows the first few characters anyway. So that's fine. Okay, so now that we have an access token, we can do the next part, which I have some notes for. So the next part, in order to be able to upload to the Instagram page, remember that the user has given us permission to access the Instagram page. And when I first kind of logged in with Facebook for this app, it kind of asked me which Facebook pages I want to share with the app. So when we use the Facebook API to get the user's pages, that is going to give us access or tell us which pages the user has shared with us. So from those pages, we can grab one, and we can then grab the Instagram account that is associated with that page, and then we can upload onto that page's Instagram account. So this is all a bit complicated, but basically this is the flow. Get the user's pages, get the Facebook page ID that we have permissions for, get that page's Instagram business account, and we keep track of that Instagram account ID. Then with that ID, we can upload pictures and media. So photos and videos, basically. So in order to do that, I actually want to launch this in here. Yeah. In order to do that, to publish photos, we have to find the Instagram user ID and then call a post request to the /media endpoint. That uploads the photo to Instagram and it stays there for up to 24 hours. Within those 24 hours, we need to call media publish and pass it the ID of the photo that we just created, and that will actually make it public for everyone to see. So I just realized I didn't explain what this is. So basically, when you do post on Instagram user ID /media, passing an image URL and optionally a caption, and there's a few other properties that you can pass as well. But once you pass the image URL, that gives you back a number which represents the photo you just uploaded. And then when you pass it in to /media publish, that makes it public. So I know this is all a bit complicated, but let's do that. But the first thing we need to do is find the Instagram user ID. So let me show you how to do that exactly. Because I've got that in here. So once you have the access token, you can query /me/accounts, pass in the access token, and that will give you all of the pages for that user has access to, and that we've given permissions, that we've been given permissions for. And then we can grab the page ID, and then we can use that to get the connected Instagram account. Once we have that, we can use that number in here in place of the IG user ID. So not an overly simple process, I have to say. So let's do that. Let's grab that data. So to do this, we are gonna make that request. And for now, I'm just gonna leave it in here. But later on, we will move it somewhere else. So the response here is that. Okay, so sorry about that. There we go. So we're making the request to /me/accounts, and we're passing the access token as a query string parameter as they want here. And that is going to give us a sort of response in this format. There's an object with a data key. Inside it, there's a list, and there's a list of the pages. Each page has an ID property, and we just want to grab the first one for now. So page ID is going to be myaccounts.json data 0 ID. So that's going to go into data, first element. I'm going to grab the ID property. Now, this is a dangerous thing to do in any public application because this is accessing a lot of nested things. If any of these things doesn't exist, this is going to just crash. But I'm trusting that because we're testing this with a single user, this is all going to be correct. A few things can happen for this to fail. For example, the user could have not selected any pages to give us permissions for when they logged in which case this would be empty. And then that would crash here. It could also happen that something's down, the access token is invalid or has expired. So there's a few things that could go wrong at any given point in time. So there should be some better error handling here. But for now, we're going to accept it as that. Once we have the page ID, we can then make a request to /page ID and pass in a field that we're interested in and the access token. So let's do that. Requests get, and we pass it into that, but obviously page ID like that. And we need some params, which are access token is the access token, and fields is equal to Instagram business account. Then the Instagram user ID is Instagram data.json, and it's basically Instagram business account ID. So there you go. Then with that, with the Instagram user ID, we can then we probably want to save that information and put it into our user account or something, so that we can then upload our photos. So let's add that over to our user model as well. So there we have that. So then we're gonna take this away and put it down here, current user.instagram user ID equal Instagram user ID. And then we'll save that. Everything quite clear up to now. I know that this is not the simplest thing in the world. But if you have any questions, let me know. I can try to explain anything that's going on, as long as I understand it myself. But I think this should work. So again, the flow is log in with Facebook, get a code back, turn it into an access token, then grab the Facebook pages that we've been given permission for, grab the first one, grab the Instagram account that is associated with that page, and we save that. And we'll use that account later on to make requests. Later on, it should be possible to do things like have one user select multiple Instagram accounts and upload photos to different Instagram accounts if they have multiple ones, and we should have some error handling in here as well. Now at this point, this is getting quite messy. So if you think this is a bit messy and kind of hacked together, you're totally right. This is very messy. This is bad code. But I like to work in a way that I've figured out how things work and if it works. And then when it does, we can sort of refactor a bit. But it's really no excuse to have something this messy and this unintrospectable, difficult to inspect. It doesn't tell us anything. It either works or doesn't. So at this point, it may be interesting to add a little bit of logging to just show us what's going on as we go through all this code. So for logging, I like to use a library called Loguru. So we're gonna use that. So I do pip install Loguru. We go to requirements.txt and we add that to the requirements.txt. Then here we'll do from Loguru import logger, and here we're gonna be logging some debug information. So what we wanna log is we're gonna start by logger dot debug. And we're gonna get the code. So got code from Facebook login. And we're gonna print out the first 10 characters of the code. You seldom want to print out or log entire values for users, because later on these logs will probably be in a file, and you don't want to have sensitive information stored in your log files. Just not a very safe thing to do. So we're gonna say that we got the code. We're gonna get the access token, although this is gonna be an info. So debug is a lower level of logging, and you can cut off certain levels. So you can log some as debug, some as info. Later on, you can set your logger to not show debug messages, only info and above. So you've got info, error, stuff like that. So your debug messages are like your lowest, not your lowest level, but you're almost your lowest level, so that you can hide them later on. And here we're gonna do the same. We're gonna do access token. We're gonna print out the first 10 characters. I think that should be fine. Then we've got logger and debug. Got a Facebook page ID. And I think this is fine to be public. I'm hoping. So we're gonna do that. Logger info, getting associated Instagram user ID. Just like that. Access token and ID user. Instagram user ID to current user. And we'll just return a string success. So now we're going to get some logs in here. Let me show you kind of what that looks like. So we'll go in here, then we'll take that away. Actually, we won't take all of that away. Login Facebook. There we go. And of course, we don't have the Instagram user ID. We do have to delete this, restart the app, and then we do have to re-register. So we'll do that. Then we continue. We get the success, and we have a bunch of logs in here, which look very nice. So I really like this logging library. For each message, we can see that we've got the debug and info messages. We know which line and which file and which function. So that's the file views.facebook.auth, the function Facebook redirect on the line 36, and then we've got the message. So we have everything. Everything should be saved to the database. So it's all good. The next step is to grab in the upload endpoint to when we upload an image, put it on Instagram and see what happens. Which is a bit scary because this is my Instagram account. I don't actually have a test account. We can try to upload a picture in there. I'll leave the picture for 5 minutes. And see if it all works. So let's try that. Once we've got the access token and it's saved to our database, I think the access token lasts for quite a long time, but it does expire eventually. And at the moment, we're not going to deal with the expiry. That is something that would come later. And by the way, at this point, we've got a few things that I've already said. We're going to deal with this later. So that is where the issue tracking kind of comes into play. So this is a public repo, and obviously anybody can access it. The issues are also public. You can use them to track the work that you intend to do, or bugs, feature requests, etc. So at this point, I would create new issues, one for each thing that you want to add later on. Mostly so you don't forget, but also so that other people that are using your product and that see the repo know that this is something you're going to deal with later, and also so that you don't get feature requests for things that you have already said that you want to do. But the most important thing is so you don't forget about this. So for every individual thing that you've said, oh, I need to do this, but I'm not going to do it just now, I would create an issue. So we can create a few, and here I would give them a lot of information. I would give the issues as much info as possible, really. But because we're obviously live streaming, I don't want to keep you guys for too long. I'm just going to create simple one-liners so that we don't forget to do them. But normally you would give a bit more information. So add error handling to code that gets Facebook access token and Instagram user ID. And you can add some labels, and that would be an enhancement. So now this kind of gets added. It appears here in the issues, and when you come back to work on your project later on, the issues are what you should work on. So normally, if there's not an issue for something, then you probably shouldn't be working on that. And the idea is that you make the issues and then you kind of prioritize them and you work on the one that you consider to be most important. So adding error handling was something that we wanted to do. Something else that we wanted to do was to add the ability to have multiple pages. Post and schedule to multiple different Instagram pages. And here you would definitely want to add more information, such as exactly what you're talking about. But for now, we'll leave it. This is just a bit of an example. And a moment ago, I just said there were 3 things, and now I've forgotten what the third one was. If any of you can think about what that was. Oh yeah, I remember now. Never mind. New issue. Add handling for when Facebook access token expires. So there you have it. I forgot to add a label on this one. There you go. So that's our 3 issues. Later on, when we come back to this, we would work on this. And for some of our internal projects that I'm working on, we have a lot of issues that we kind of just work through. And whenever we think of anything new that we want to work on potentially in the future, we create issues for them. Later on, one of 2 things happens with issues. Either you tackle them and you complete them. Well, one of 3 things happens. Either you tackle them and you complete them, or you decide that you're not going to tackle them and complete them, so you can just close them. Or you realize the issue is too big and you kind of close it and then create 2 or more issues in its place. So you split issues into multiple sub-issues. And those are the 3 things that normally happen with issues. But it's good to have them in here. Even if they're big and kind of lacking a bit of information, you should come back and add more information as you think of it. That's why issues have a place for description, and that's why they have a discussion. So somebody else in your team or even yourself can come here and leave some comments, and over time you can build up your understanding of this issue and how you're going to tackle it. So issues, very important. Don't just keep everything in your head. That's a recipe for disaster. So Christian asks, what's the difference between an issue and a pull request? So an issue describes something you want to do. A pull request describes that you have done something and you want to bring in the code that you've written into the repository. So you can see the repository has branches. At the moment there's only one, the main branch. But if I was working on something new, normally, especially if you're working with more than one person, so if there's multiple people working on the same thing, each person would create a branch for the thing they're working on. So for example, I could have a branch right now for uploading to Instagram. That would be a good branch. And all my code related to uploading in Instagram would be in that branch. And then you can switch between branches. So if I go to that branch, I would have all this code. If I go to the main branch, all of this would be gone. This file would be gone. And it would be back to what it was at the start of the stream. So you'd have those 2 branches. And the benefit of that is that the main branch always works. You can, if another person wants to work on something new, they go to the main branch and they kind of start off a new branch from there. They don't have to use your half-written code. So that's the kind of the benefit of branches. And once you're done with your work on the Instagram branch, you make a pull request to bring in the Instagram branch into the main branch and merge all the code into the main branch. And the reason to have a pull request is because you say, I want to bring my code in here, and this is the request that I'm making in order to do that. And at that point, your team members can look at your code and maybe offer some suggestions for how to do things better, or at least look at the code and learn from it. See what you've done, look at the changes that you've made to the code, and kind of ask you questions and try to understand things a bit better. So that's the reason for pull requests. Also, pull requests are a very good piece of documentation. Once you've got a whole bunch of pull requests, usually closed because you've already merged them into the main branch, you can go through all the closed pull requests and you see, oh yeah, back in June we merged this and we added this feature, and then in July we did that, and you've got a bit of a history of everything you've done and grouped together by large features or something like that. So you don't turn issues into pull requests, but I guess the syntax is pull requests resolve issues. But the issue stays, and then you make a pull request and you can say this pull request resolves issue number 2, for example. And then when you merge the pull request, you close the issue. So what's the difference between a to-do and an issue? GitHub doesn't have the concept of to-dos, so you could use issues as to-dos if you wanted. You can also use them to collect bug reports. Basically, issues is anything that you want to do in your project. That could be enhancements like we've got here, or it could be anything else. And then, can we not put a to-do in the code? You can put a to-do in the code, so you could just go in here and say, where was it here? To-do and error handling. But this is not great because of a few reasons. The first one is it's a comment which doesn't affect the code. So later on, when you come in here and you add error handling, it is very likely that you'll forget to delete this comment. And then this will remain there, but the error handling will already be present. 6 months later, you come in here and you say, oh shit, we've got a to-do here to add error handling, but you won't be able to figure out if that's something that is still relevant or not. So to-dos in the code, not ideal. And the other thing that you've got with the to-dos in the code is you're making code changes for something that doesn't add anything to the code. So it's a bit messy. And it's not something you can prioritize. It's not something you can share with people very easily. It's not something that non-technical stakeholders will really have access to. For example, if you've got a project manager or something like that, they're not going to be able to look at the to-dos in your code. It's not something you can really share with anybody. So to-dos in the code is something I would discourage you from using. Okay, so brief foray into GitHub there. Let's see if we can do the uploading. So we upload the file to B2 Backblaze, and now what we want to do is grab it and put it on Instagram. And the uploading to Instagram would be done on a schedule. So the user would upload their photo through our website and they would say, I want to upload this to Instagram next week at 3 p.m. And it is then that we would go into Instagram and upload the picture. But we're not going to do that today. What we're going to do today is see if we can actually upload the photo to B2 and then directly upload it to Instagram. And in the next session, in 2 weeks' time, we will try to set up some sort of scheduling thing going on. But that's not going to be very easy either. So let's see if we can do that. So uploading to Instagram, we need to do 2 things. The first one, we need to grab the Instagram user ID and the access token, and we do post/IG user ID /media, and we include the image URL. So let's do that. And for that we need requests, so import requests, and we are gonna do create media is requests.post, and we are going to here, where this is the Instagram user ID. So that's current user.instagram user ID, like that. And where the params are, image URL is equal to the file URL. And we're not going to have a caption just yet. We also need, of course, the access token, which is current user.facebook access token. There we go. Deleted that, didn't intend that. So that's a post. So that should be all good. And that is going to return a container ID, which we then call media publish on. And that's requests.post, and it goes on to the same user ID / media publish, and we pass in the creation ID. So we will grab that media underscore publish, and then we need params, which is the container ID, and of course the access token, which is current user Facebook access token. Like that. The container ID is create media.json. Container ID, I guess it's that. Let's add some login in here as well from Loguru import logger. And let's do this. Logger debug handling post of upload endpoint logger debug. We'll add some logger in here. Then we will logger debug file saved to a local disk. Local disk in there. And then we will say file saved to b2 backblaze at file URL. There's some login in there. Then we save that and we get this here. Logger debug. Creating Instagram media with Facebook API. Logger debug. Publishing Instagram container. So this is kind of what we get in here, and we're gonna grab this and create a container ID, which is gonna be equal to that. And we're gonna turn that into an F string, and we're gonna put it here. So quite a few changes going on. So what's happening is a few things. Let me just make that a bit bigger. And just added some logging here so that at each step of the way we can know what's happening. And that way it's going to let us figure out where things go wrong, if something goes wrong, which I hope not. It's also going to let us know if this kind of works or not. Then at this point, publish media endpoint is gonna presumably respond with a 200 or a 201, the HTTP status code. So if publish media status code is equal to 201, that's the status code I'm expecting, then this would be published successfully. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish media status code, and I'm just going to do that. Instagram container published successfully with status HTTP status that logger debug publish media dot content. That's just going to give us everything that the publish media response contains. So I think that is everything. So let's just go through it once more. We get the file, we upload it to B2 Backblaze. We know that all of this worked up to here, so I'm expecting all of that to work. Then we give the Instagram API or Facebook API the image URL and the access token that we've got saved in the database. Then we get the container ID, which represents an image uploaded to Instagram for up to 24 hours in a draft format. And then we say publish it. And this kind of crops it into a square and all that. So you don't have a lot of publishing tools at this point. But it will turn the image into a square if it's not a square. And that kind of publishes the image, and then it should show up in the Instagram page. And that's it. So that's a bit scary there. But let's see what happens then. Let's see what happens. So we go to login Facebook. We get a new access token when we do this, which is good because that means it won't be expired. And then we're going to go to /upload. And we're going to choose our JPEG image. File saved to local disk. You can see the things going here. And we forgot to put HTTPS. So the logging saves the day yet again. Invalid URL, graphfacebook.com, no schema supplied, perhaps you meant HTTP, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we meant HTTPS. So let's save that. That's restarted. Let's go back to upload and we will try again. File saved to local disk. File saved to B2 Backblaze, creating Instagram media with Facebook API. And there was an error there. So I think that what failed was this line here, which means that this kinda worked. We just didn't get back the thing that we were expecting. So let me add some more login here. Logger and debug. Media created, Instagram media created successfully. Logger debug create media.json. So with that in there, let's try once more. So that's it, saving to B2 Backblaze. Creating the Instagram media with the Facebook API. And it's just an ID. So it's not a container ID, it's just an ID. Okay, there we go. So we don't need that. So that's the ID, that is the container ID, and that should be good to go. So save that. Let's try again. And now I think that's going to work. My mistake, I think. This is creation ID, not container ID. See, this is This is one of the frequent problems that you get with documentation. This returns a container ID, but then you have to pass in a creation ID parameter. So I think that's a bit confusing. But that's okay. We'll call it creation ID then. Let's try again. So we'll grab this and put it in there. There we go. That's it published. And you guys can see it on the Instagram page. So that worked successfully. Let me just bring it in here. Instagram.com. There you go. So that was created with the Instagram API, which is just one of our photos from our blog, in case you're wondering what it is. So there you have it. You can like that picture if you want, although I'm going to delete it in just a moment. So quite a few things have gone on. The login with Facebook and getting the data has not been the easiest by any stretch. But what we ended up getting is access token and the page ID or the user ID for Instagram. And with those two, we can then publish to Instagram. So as long as those are saved in a database, then we can, in theory, later on, whenever the user wants to schedule this upload for, we can in theory upload to Instagram without having to have the user around or anything like that. So if you have any questions about anything that we've done so far, now is the time to ask them. Because this is everything that I wanted to go through today. So yeah, if you have any questions, ask away. Or if you just want to ask about something else that you're doing. In the meantime, I'm going to add this to Git. Yeah. So that's the GitHub uploaded. So if you want to check out the code as it stands right now, you can see it here on /techladocode/Instagram scheduler stream. A bit of a hacked together approach today, but I'm hoping that next time we can kind of improve on it a little bit and add the scheduling. The most complicated thing by far today was logging in with Facebook. I think it's actually not that bad, not that convoluted a process compared to some other ones, but it is complicated. I think it kind of has to be in order to be secure, I guess. Not the easiest, and also because it's linked with Instagram, you kind of have to go through a few hoops to then get the Instagram user ID, but we managed. So that's all good. Hopefully that's interesting. The login with Facebook is very similar across all services. So if you want to do the same thing with Twitter or with Discord, it's basically the same. So you just make a couple requests and end up getting an access token, and that access token is what represents your users. Yeah. Thanks for joining in. I'm gonna call it a day here. But as always, if you have any questions or you want to chat about anything, you can join the Discord server where I usually am, so I can help out with anything you guys want to do. And if you're trying this project, if you want to add some improvements to it or something like that, feel free to fork the repo, add your improvements, and then submit a pull request. I can't promise I will merge any pull requests before we finish streaming. I think there's going to be 5 or 6 episodes, but after that, maybe we can make this a bit more interesting if you guys want to tackle some improvements as well. So yeah, that's everything. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. And if not, I'll catch you later on. I'll stay in the chat for a few more minutes just in case. But thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.